Hey guys, it's your course director, Emily Ray. Just wanted to spend some time going through the text-based resumes that you submitted and supplying you some positive, productive feedback on how you will take what you've created here and evolve it as you move through MCBS and the portfolio process. So a couple of things to start with. Looking ahead, you want to make sure that your resume, that there's a clear connection between the skills and experiences that you are listing here and the media communications industry, if that is in fact where you want to get a job. So, you might have a different background, maybe some work experience that doesn't necessarily relate to media. You need to make sure that those things that you are leveraging as evidence of your ability in media are listed here in order to get a media related job. So now, if you don't have any experience or skills in media in terms of professional work experience, what do you need to develop between now and graduation so that you can have a fully formed and filled out resume that will help you get the job that you want to get? One other point, and kind of a collective point of feedback, is that when you are talking about a specific position that you have held, try not just to talk about what your responsibilities were in that position, but also the achievements or what you were able to accomplish in your role there. That will help show what is unique about you and what you can bring to the situation. And then last but not least, kind of moving forward, you will take this text-based resume that you've created here in Portfolio 3 and you will create a more visually styled version of it that's consistent with your personal brand in Portfolio 6. So in thinking about that, I want you to start editing down the content so that it can be displayed on a single page. Now remember, you'll have the colors, the fonts, and your personal brand logo to infuse with this moving forward. So with added design elements, it may be a little bit harder to fit all of your intended content. That being said, you'll want to be able to design your future resume in a way that you can customize it for whatever job you are going to be applying for in the future. So what I'm going to do is go through these resumes one by one and just point a few things out. It would behoove you to watch this entire review because there's a lot of things that you can learn from your fellow cohort members, and also be inspired in the design decisions or wording choices that they made or how they were able to characterize their skills and experience. So we're going to start out with Angels here. So we've got a nice, very clear heading up here for your name, but I would go ahead and make multimedia content developer kind of like a subtitle here so that it's not as big in terms of the sizing and the weight as your name. So your name should be the biggest thing, and then sort of use multimedia content developer as somewhat of a tagline there. Go ahead and you share that your objective is to get into content creation for social media and marketing. That's great because that helps kind of focus your job search, right? So, if you are applying for a job that has nothing to do with social media or marketing, you might want to update this objective. So you can see how having a flexible enough design that will allow you to change the language for whatever job you're applying for is going to be certainly very important. So you've got your summary of qualifications here. So this is really, just like skills, right? Things that you bring to the table. You have your professional experience in the background there. So what I see is that you're highlighting your work with the Army and that you held these roles, and they're all media related, which is really cool. But can you tell me a little bit more about your responsibilities here? How did you have to leverage these skills while you were in the Army? Education and training. So here we've got your degree program. I would go ahead and kind of highlight that this is, a bachelor's of media communications and put your estimated graduation date here or your projected graduation date. And then so you've got training in these areas: freelance blogger, editing for video and photos. What I might ask is where did you get that training? What is the certification or the kind of the educational institution that provided you guidance in this area? So here we've got skills and certifications, so things that you've learned on lynda.com, which is absolutely great. You've taken this bulleted list approach, which is smart to keep your resume scannable, but there are some areas where we'll want more information and some where we will want less information. So you wouldn't need to repeat repeat lynda.com every time if the only way you categorized this section was to say lynda.com certificates. Keep in mind that the world in general might not know what lynda.com is. So, perhaps a descriptive statement that says that it's a learning library where you can learn a variety of technical and communication skills would be important there. Also great that you have included volunteer experience and awards that you have won. Maybe a little bit more information about what you did with Photography 101 to Kids. What was your role, what were your accomplishments, that sort of thing. This is a really great start, Angel. You have some relative and relevant experience to add to your media communications resume in the hopes of getting a job in the social media and marketing environment moving forward. So again, just to reiterate, you will take this text-based resume and create a visual branded version of it in Portfolio 6. So certainly save this somewhere, where you will have access to it. But keep in mind that a lot is going to happen between now and Portfolio 6. So be sure that you are updating this resume anytime you can add a new project, any new skills or experience to this resume. Next up, we have Thomas's resume here. So kind of missing up front is just sort of your name and then your kind of contact information where people can find your portfolio or email you. It's okay if you didn't want to include that for the purposes of this activity. So your objective is to push yourself and your skills to higher levels and create more content, but what kind, right? So there's kind of a vagueness in that statement. I see here from your professional experience that you've done things with gaming, right? So maybe your objective could be defined a bit more, with a bit more focus towards that end. You have some professional experience here that kind of supports your interest in gaming. So what did you do? What were your responsibilities? What did you achieve in these positions? Remember, all of this content is keyword rich, meaning that if a human resources or recruiting program were scanning for resumes or scanning for portfolios, you want to make sure that the language that you use in these documents or on your website have the kinds of terms that will get you picked up by these employers. So you've got your education and training down here. So we've got Full Sail, Bachelor of Media Communications, and go ahead and put your expected graduation date. We've got these skills and certifications. It's just kind of like a comma separated list at this point, which is fine, but I'm thinking kind of moving ahead to the stylized version of this that you might want bulleted lists. And so you've got your volunteer experience here, which is great. So what I would go ahead and do is, just kind of like give more of a narrative around this. Tell the story. How can you do that in a brief yet impactful way? And then awesome. Anytime that you can share associations, memberships, awards, just to kind of give a more well-rounded picture of who you are as an individual is going to be something that you can leverage in the service of making connections and getting a job for sure. So again, everything that I kind of said at the beginning of this is going to go for every single one of the reviews. So remember, you guys can learn a lot from watching how each of you is approaching this. But make sure that you have that clear connection with skills and the jobs that you're seeking, and what do you need to do between now and graduation to get the experience or the skills for your dream job, and how can I highlight my accomplishments, and how can you edit your resume down to a single page. At this point, Thomas, you're at a good place where you still have room to play here. You still have details to add and sort of that connective tissue to this bare bones resume. But overall, this is a really nice start. Next up, we have Jeff's resume here. It's nice and plain and clean and easy to read through and scan. We can see that he has a lot of experience in the realm of photography and career objectives to use his media communication skills in a number of different organizations, nonprofits, government entities, etc. You have quite a bit of education here, including Full Sail, and then you have a a professional association membership here. I think that that probably isn't going to go in your education section unless it was in fact a course of study or a curriculum. So that might be something where you make like an affiliations or an associations section in and of itself. And you would want these to be chronological, right, with the newest or most recent on top. So Full Sail would be at the top, and then if this is a kind of a course or a course of study, that would be second, Richmond College third. So we've got your skills here, quite a number of different areas where you can contribute in a meaningful way. And then you have your professional experience and where you were able to do your work achievements. So what I like here is that you have definitely given us a full picture of what you've done in these roles. And so again, kind of in tandem with my previous feedback, make sure that you're not just focusing on responsibilities, but also your achievements in these positions. Kind of coming down here to the bottom, you have some references, which is great. You want to know who can, I rely on to give me the types of recommendations, or who can speak to my experience and my ability and my work ethic in a way that's supportive of the jobs that I want to get. So Jeff, this is wonderful. You have plenty here. So my biggest point of feedback for you will be thinking about how do I edit this down to the essential content that I would need for a one-page resume, as it is stylized and branded with my logo and my chosen fonts, typefaces, and colors. So that's really going to be the work for you between now and Portfolio 6. But then also, again, as you continue to get new skills and have new experiences, make sure that you're updating this with that which is most relevant to the types of jobs that you want to do. All right, next up, we have the resume of Josh. So you have a very clean, very filled out resume at this point. It looks like you have a lot of kind of account management and sales experience and retail experience, management experience. But what I'm not seeing here is how that relates so much to your degree in media communications. So my first thought is that, you probably are already using this in a special capacity, since that, I can see here that you have a lot of experience over quite an extended timeline, which means you have no shortage of work history to call on. But how are you going to highlight the aspects of these jobs that will kind of speak to whatever your goals are in media communications? So that seems like it's an important thought point for you in getting this degree. How can I characterize or highlight the aspects of these positions that will ultimately help demonstrate my ability in media communications to get the job that I want to get, right? This is all very clean. It's one page. And so something that I'm not seeing here are technical skills. And again, this feedback is relevant if you do want to get a job in media communications. If you want to continue along the lines of the career trajectory that you're in, because it looks like you are pretty established already, then take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. The assumption at this point is that you are in media communications because you would like to do this as a career or get into the industry. So if that is in fact the case, we need to talk about how do we showcase your skills and ability in that area to get the job that you want. So again, clear connection between what you're doing or what you have done in the media communications industry, and then if you need to build skills and experience between now and graduation or when you start your career search or your job search, identifying where those gaps are. What do you need to do to kind of fill this out in a meaningful way? Not just your responsibilities in these positions, but also your achievements or your accomplishments. And this is a nice one-page resume. It's somewhat styled already, very clean and easy to review. But moving forward into Portfolio 6, Josh, how are you going to skin this with your own personal brand? That will be some of the thought work and the design work that's in store for you moving forward. And remember, anytime you do something new, this resume is going to need to be updated, with that information. And anytime you apply to a new position, you're going to need to customize the information that you share here, just so it more closely or most closely aligns with the job description that you are applying for. Next up, we've got Stephanie. So this is a very full, very information-dense resume here. You have no shortage of experience, and it seems like you've done a nice job in really capturing what your responsibilities were at each of these, at each of these places of employment. So here, the first thing that I did notice is that it is an overwhelming amount of information. Part of your job moving forward will be to kind of really distill this into a one-page format that's media-centric. If you do in fact want to get a job in the media communications industry, you have so much experience here. So how can you characterize all of this to help leverage your experience and skills to find that media-related job? One thing I did notice is this looks kind of like it is your email address up here, so I'm not understanding the HTTP / so address that, because that format looks a little off there. And additionally, this format for kind of just sharing URLs isn't the most user-friendly way to do this. I know you guys have been in editing for the web and have learned how to properly title links, giving it something that's intuitive instead of what I like to call gobbledygook URLs here. So another thing to be thinking about, you guys, is to go ahead and update your LinkedIn profiles to get that vanity URL, meaning that it's just your name and not some sort of arbitrary combination of letters and numbers. And then thinking about, is it appropriate for me to get my own domain name to house my personal portfolio? Kind of scrolling through here, we see that you were part of the Army and you just have just a rich background in education and customer service. And so again, how does this apply to your goals in media and what you want to do? I like very much that you have put a lot of quantitative details in here. So I'm seeing, that you, enhancing involvement to drive training completion results by, additional 15%. This kind of, quantification is a measurable achievement, right? So it's not just what you did in the role, but what you were able to achieve, how effective you were. And that's a great way to show, what I can uniquely bring to every employment situation. So that is a very good thing to do, and I'm happy to see that you have that here. Moving forward, I would say just the biggest opportunities for you would be thinking about how this is going to be incorporated with your personal brand and really streamlining the information, this vast amount of experience and history, into something that's media-centric and supportive of your career aspirations in media. Next up, we've got Matthew Oakley. So here it's very clean and laid out. It's easily scannable. So, you are looking for television production opportunities and just a place where your skills can be utilized. A nice summary of skills here. Both, it seems like we have some technical listings, but then also those soft skills, those communication skills, which are so important. Your work experience, you are a photo specialist at Walgreens and then a sales associate at American Eagle. So what I see here are kind of two different, both are somewhat retail positions, where you likely have had to use various kinds of communication and or media skills, especially as a photo specialist. But how can you kind of more fully detail your involvement here and characterize it in a way that is supportive of your media career aspirations, right? So something for you to think about, that it wouldn't just be kind of a bullet point of organize the store. It would be more of a full retelling of the ways that you were leveraging media related skills in these jobs. It's great to see the volunteer work here as well. Always good to highlight your connections both to community and the networks that you are involved in. It's just a way to show kind of a full perspective of who you are, as an individual who is looking to be brought into a company. You might want to attach some dates here to your courses of study, and especially with the full sail and expected or an estimated graduation date there. So this is a wonderful start. As I have instructed most students in this review, be thinking about, okay, every time I'm doing something new that's media related, which is an additional skill and or experience to add to my resume, that I've got to come back to this text-based resume and update it, because come Portfolio 6, you're going to be revising this in such a way that you need to put your elements of personal brand on it and really kind of streamline that content towards getting a specific media related job. All right, and last but not least, we have the resume of Jonathan. So here, laid out very simply in a text-based format. I got a few sort of apology notes from students to say, sorry, it's so ugly, but that really was the ask, right? I urged you to resist, stylizing this at this point, because it really is the text-based content, the keyword content, the phrasing, the articulation of what you did that is so important in this version of your resume. I want you to have it in an easily editable form so you can add stuff to this as it comes up over the next few months between now and when you get into Portfolio 6 and make that more stylized version of this. So we've got your contact information, your objective up here to work in an IT field and kind of use your skills in a problem-solving way. We can see that you've got your education here and some of your competencies in terms of skills and ability, which is great, and this all speaks very highly of your experience and your history and how in-depth you have already been in this IT field. There is a lot of information. There's a lot of keywords here, and you are providing kind of insight into certain types of functionality, that you can or how you can leverage your skills to fill certain roles or complete certain functions in an IT capacity, which is great. What I again would ask you to be thinking about is, okay, how can I characterize this work in such a way that will help me get that media related job that I'm looking to do? How can I talk about not just my responsibilities, but my accomplishments in that role? How can I say, these are the things that I know how to do, and because of this result that I got, it is it's basically empirical evidence or proof that I can, that I am effective in this role, right? So kind of a somewhat related example would be, I'm a talented video editor and I know how to use, Adobe Premiere. Well, that's great, right? But if your accomplishment is that you earned an Emmy for cinematography and editing for a short piece, that award or that accomplishment is evidence of your skill sets and abilities in that area. So I hope you can extrapolate from that, somewhat related example to kind of, what I'm talking about with not just tell me what you were responsible for or what you can do, but what was the result of what you have done that proves your effectiveness in that role. Scrolling down, you have quite a bit of information here, and a lot of it's technical, right? A lot of this I'm looking at and I'm thinking, wow, I'm not even sure that I even have a full understanding of what these things are, and that's okay, because I am not an IT professional. But if I am a media agency, or maybe I am an HR a person who's in charge of recruiting for certain media related tasks, I don't see much of that here, right? So this is what you've done. My encouragement is for you to be thinking about what skills and experiences do I need to have and or list between now and graduation to get the kind of jobs that I want. If you want more of this IT-based work, you've got a really great start with both your work experience and the ways that you've been able to capture it here. So kind of just as a follow-up to everybody, looking ahead, these are the things, like these are the big points. I've mentioned this throughout and kind of in specific instances so that you will kind of see how this feedback applies to your specific resume or where you are. But is there a clear connection between the skills and experiences that you have on your resume and the media communications industry? And if there's not, you need to ask yourselves, okay, like what am I listing on my resume that will help me get the job that I want to get? And if you don't want to get a job in media communications, what industry do you want to be in? Because this feedback is equally as relevant to that conversation. If you decide that you want to be in IT and not media communications, then your resume should make sure that you have skills and experience that back that up there, right? So I'm hoping that you can see how those points can be transferred between different industries, and the talk of how do I prepare the content on my resume to be effective in finding a job. what skills and experience do you need between now and graduation to land your dream job, right? So you might have had some unrelated experiences in your job history that don't really kind of express your capabilities in media, certainly, or your interests or aptitudes. So what can you do between now and graduation to gain demonstrable skills or experience that support your aspirations in those areas? This is one that I kind of hammered in quite a bit in some of the reviews, but not just what my responsibilities are, but what are my accomplishments in my role. And then last but not least, thinking, okay, this text-based resume is a step in an overall trajectory for you here in media communications. We are meant to get the text-based content, that articulation, explanation of your skills and abilities, and overall readiness to take on certain jobs. That was the goal of this assignment, but you will be taking the content that you've created here, and as you continue to update it between now and Portfolio 6 to create a more visual representation of your resume that aligns with your personal brand. So if you guys have any questions about what I've shared here, please let me know. My kind of closing encouragement is to make sure that for each class that you're in, particularly for portfolios, that you are saving your work and saving it in an editable form so you can go back and call on it again and reuse it again and plug and play it in a different way. If you're spending the time to create meaningful content, as you've done here with your text-based resume, make sure that you can access it again in the future when you need to use it for your next evolution of that project. Thanks, everybody.